Achter deze tweede wereldtitel van Luke Littler.
Luke Littler destroyed Gian van Veen 7-1 in a World Championship final. It looked like a warning to the entire sport. Van Veen had climbed all the way to the biggest match in darts, only to discover that Littler was operating on another level. But then something unexpected happened. Van Veen came back. He beat Littler in their first Premier League meeting. He kept reaching finals. And when they met again in Manchester, with the match balanced at 5 legs each, Van Veen survived the pressure and defeated him again. That is what makes him dangerous. Not because he is already better than Littler, he is not. But because the most painful defeat of his career did not convince him that Littler was untouchable. It gave him a target. When Van Veen walked onto the Alexandra Palace stage for the 2026 World Championship final, he had already achieved something extraordinary. The Dutchman was only 23, yet he had become a major champion, won consecutive world youth titles, and fought his way through the most demanding tournament in darts. Then Littler dismantled him. The final ended 7-1 in sets. Littler won 7 consecutive sets, averaged above 106, and completed the night with a 147 checkout. Van Veen had not simply lost. He had been shown the distance between reaching the final and controlling it. For many young players, that kind of defeat becomes a scar. Every future meeting begins with the memory of the scoreboard. The opponent no longer looks like another professional. He begins to look inevitable. Van Veen refused to let that happen. Only weeks later, the two met again on the opening night of the Premier League. This time, Van Veen won. It did not erase the World Championship final, but it changed the meaning of it. The 7-1 scoreline was no longer proof that he could not compete. It became evidence of what he still had to learn. And the Premier League revealed that his response was not one lucky night. Van Veen reached 3 of the first 4 nightly finals in his debut campaign. That matters because the Premier League is designed to expose uncertainty. Every week brings another arena, another elite opponent, and another short match in which a slow start can end the night before it has properly begun. New players are not supposed to look comfortable immediately. Van Veen did. His rise had already been building before the World Final. In 2025, he became the youngest European champion in history.
He is in dreamland. Did have a go at Turner.
He also retained the World Youth Championship, joining a tiny group of players capable of winning that title in consecutive years. Those achievements showed 2 different sides of him. The youth title proved that he could handle expectation against players from his own generation. The European Championship proved that he could beat established professionals when a senior major trophy was on the table. Then the numbers became even harder to ignore. Before the 2026 Premier League began, the PDC's form analysis ranked Van Veen first for doubles and third for averages across his previous 200 legs. Littler remained the dominant scoring force, but Van Veen was converting chances more efficiently than anyone else in the field. That is a dangerous skill against Littler. Most players know they will receive only a few opportunities. Littler's scoring can compress a leg so quickly that one missed double becomes the entire match. Trying to match him maximum for maximum often creates panic. Players rush, force the treble, and arrive at the finishing line already under pressure. Van Veen's threat is different. His scoring is strong enough to stay connected, but his finishing gives him a way to punish the rare moments when Littler leaves the door open. He does not need to dominate every visit. He needs to remain close enough for one missed double to matter. We saw the extreme version of that quality before his World Championship run. At the 2025 World Grand Prix, Van Veen produced a tournament record average against Littler, and still lost in straight sets. That result sounds brutal. It also explains the rivalry. Van Veen can produce historic numbers and still discover that Littler has another answer. Yet he keeps returning to the same challenge. Every defeat gives him more information: how Littler controls tempo, how quickly he recovers, and which moments can still disturb him. By the spring of 2026, their meetings were beginning to feel different. Van Veen underwent surgery for kidney stones during the Premier League campaign. He returned to the competition and soon faced Littler again in Manchester. The match reached a deciding leg. The atmosphere tightened. Littler missed his opportunity, and the tension between them became visible. Van Veen finished the job, winning 6-5.
Oh, hij is terug.
He then defeated Josh Rock and reached another nightly final. It was his fourth final of the campaign, and it moved him back toward the playoff race. The important detail was not simply that Van Veen had beaten Littler. Plenty of excellent players can defeat the world number one in a short match. The important detail was the pattern: World Championship final, Premier League, European Tour, major stages, deciding legs. The same two young players kept being pulled toward one another. Littler himself had already described matches against Van Veen as brilliant games. That recognition matters. Elite rivals are not created by marketing. They emerge when two players repeatedly occupy the same late stages and force each other to solve familiar problems under increasing pressure. Van Veen is especially threatening because his timeline is so unusual. Luke Humphries is already a proven world champion and remains one of the strongest players alive. Michael van Gerwen carries the experience of an era-defining career. Gerwyn-Price can turn any short match into an emotional battle. But Van Veen is different. He is only a few years older than Littler. He can improve beside him rather than simply trying to slow him down before age takes something away. If Littler controls darts for the next decade, Van Veen has the time to spend that same decade studying him. And he is not arriving empty-handed. He is a European champion, a World Championship finalist, a back-to-back World Youth Champion, a Premier League finalist on multiple nights. He has produced a televised 9-darter and risen to number 3 in the world. Those are not promises. They are evidence. There is still an enormous warning attached to this story. Littler is ahead. The World Championship final was not close. Littler owns the larger trophies, the heavier scoring records, and the ability to make elite performances look ordinary. Van Veen has also suffered stretches in which his results dropped and the Premier League punished every slight decline. Calling him Littler's equal would be premature. But a rival does not need to be equal at the beginning. He needs to remain present long enough to change the ending. Phil Taylor overwhelmed generations of opponents partly because challengers often disappeared. One player would rise, lose a final, and fall away. Another would arrive, survive briefly, and then discover that repeating the performance was harder than producing it once. Van Veen's most impressive quality may be that he keeps coming back after Littler gives him reasons not to. 7-1 in the biggest match of his life. Then a victory. A record-breaking performance that still ended in defeat. Then another victory. That cycle creates knowledge, resentment, confidence, and pressure. It also removes the most powerful weapon a dominant player can possess: the belief that the result has already been decided. The next chapter will not be determined by one Premier League quarter-final or one 9-darter. Van Veen still has to convert regular finals into major titles. He must prove that his finishing survives longer formats, difficult months, and the attention that follows every new breakthrough. But the foundations of a real rivalry are already visible. They have history. They have contrasting personalities. They belong to the same generation. They have traded victories. And both are already appearing in matches that shape the future of professional darts. That is why Gian van Veen is more dangerous than many people realize. He is not the player most likely to dominate Littler tomorrow. He is the player young enough, skilled enough, and stubborn enough to make sure Littler never dominates alone. The 7-1 final was supposed to show us how far Van Veen stood behind Luke Littler. Instead, it may eventually be remembered as the Knight Darts introduced Littler to the rival who refused to go away.